Hi, good morning. How is everyone?
Good morning.
You good too?
I'm great.
Yeah?
I'm great. It's Thursday.
It is. It is almost Friday. I think that's what I
Yes.
told one of our colleagues this morning. I was
I
like,
know.
almost Friday?
Thursday is the new Friday.
That's true. And actually, for some workplaces, that is accurate.
That
Having
is.
32-hour work weeks.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
any plans for the weekend?
We've got some big plans for
Yeah?
the weekend, and it's Mizzou homecoming,
It is.
so M-I-Z.
ZOU.
Yep.
All right. Well, how about you guys? We'd love to hear from you. Do you all have any big plans for the weekend? We also put a question in the chat. I can speak today.
Yep.
We put a question in the chat to you. We're just curious. Did any of you start during the shutdown last year, or did you have any employees who did? Let us know how that went, if that's the case. Thanks, Mary, for letting us know you did have a few. We'd love to know how that went. Today's topic: onboarding.
Yep.
Onboarding. So this is interesting. I think this idea, when I brought it to you, I said it was, Gallup is talking a lot about the onboarding process right now. And what we find is as they're calling it, we're going through a great resignation.
Yes.
And so with that, people are looking for new jobs.
Yep.
And they're getting hired at new places.
Yep.
So what does your onboarding process look like?
Right.
Do you have one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it needs to be a very intentional one.
Yes.
And you need to give that some thought for sure.
Yes. And so I'm curious, as you think back in your careers, did you have a successful onboarding experience or a not so successful one?
Yeah. I can tell you a big one that made an impact. I won't tell you where it was, but I do remember coming my first day, and of course you're really emotional. You're really, you're anxious, you're excited, but you are just a ball of nerves. I mean, everything of the unknown is happening. And I remember getting there, and it was a big organization, or maybe just well known in the community. And so the building itself wasn't unknown to me. But I remember getting there, and they basically forgot.
Oh,
they forgot that was my first day. They didn't have anything planned for me.
Oh boy.
And the position that I was filling, the person had already left. So there wasn't that time of transition where I could maybe sit with this person. So literally all day, 8 hours, I sat in a chair in the hall outside of the HR office.
Oh no.
Literally.
Oh,
because
man.
they didn't have anything. I mean, they forgot me. And so, and being a young professional, I didn't have that, initiative to go and make my own contacts or do anything like that. Like, I was just doing what I was told.
Right.
And basically sat there all day. Just kind of, hi, and nobody really spoke to me. I didn't even have like a manual to read through. Of course, nothing back then was online, so I wasn't at a computer terminal. And it was really a hard way to start.
I bet.
In that organization.
Did that set the tone then, I guess, for kind of how you expected maybe your career with that organization to go?
I guess the right answer is sure, but you just didn't know what you didn't know. And it took me, I will say this, it took me a long time to get going.
Sure.
And it did feel like a grind to get things done. And of course, back in the 80s, everything seemed like a grind, but compared to today.
Sure.
But it was just exhausting. And you just kind of felt left out and lost, and that nobody really, cared. And they certainly didn't have anything planned. And even when they did, the next day catch up to me, it still wasn't planned.
Sure.
It was just like, oh, well, why don't you sit with her? And then, oh, wait, well, why don't you go over here?
Never even really made up.
Yeah, it was real willy-nilly. And that's why it just took me so long to get productive.
Sure.
Because they just never really had anything intentional.
Sure. It sets the tone. I tell you, I think of obviously MTI, and I'll share that story when I started here and the great onboarding process that we had here. But I actually was fortunate. I worked for an organization just out of college, and I remember my first day with them. I go in and it was a smaller company, but they had everyone kind of surrounding me in a kind of a rally, like welcoming, clapping. There was music playing in the back. And then we actually went out like throughout the day. That morning, I kind of got acclimated to each department. They had me sit with the different team leads of those departments. And then we had lunch. All of us together had lunch.
Nice.
Then I believe it was the next day, we actually in the afternoon went for a movie, went to the theaters.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and saw Iron Man. That tells you probably how old it was, but it was great. And I remember being so energized by that.
Nice.
It really set the tone for what I perceived my career would look like with them. Nice. And great group of people, and certainly a great onboarding process there.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was fortunate. So I would love to see, I'm seeing some comments come in. I love it, you guys.
Good.
Thank you. So it looks like Debbie's going to have some new folks reporting to her soon. Mary said that
Debbie.
Yeah. Mary said that her situation, she said she had several people that started during the shutdown. It went well. There's a few things they could have done better, right? We always learn from those past mistakes sometimes. Yes. And so great. Yeah, keep sharing those with us. And we'd love to hear stories of your onboarding process. If you had a successful one, what did it include? What did they do to make you feel really welcomed? Yeah. Because that's part of it.
It is.
That's what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
I think, thinking about your onboarding process, when you bring somebody into the organization, I really feel like your mindset needs to be hire to retire, and really thinking about, if I want this person to come into my organization and feel as welcome and as part of the organization as you did, right, it needs to be intentional, and you need to be able to socialize that person to your culture. Right. And now's your chance. Right? Now's your chance. It's not just a day of socialization. This is how you want to present your culture to this person. And so you need to have a plan. Absolutely. You really need to have a plan, and it's more than just one day. It's more than 2 days. And it's your opportunity to capture that energy and that enthusiasm of a new hire. Because they're all bright and shiny and ready to go, and they're motivated, and it's that opportune time to really engage them.
And there's a correlation between how well they're set up through that onboarding process and their continuous engagement within the workplace. And we know that engagement, going through Gallup's workforce report, it's down a little bit. Yep. It's down a little bit. Productivity, not so much, but engagement certainly is. Right. And so you got to do everything you possibly can to really boost that and retain your employees. Because we also know that it costs more to rehire than it does to really work with the people you got.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what do you think when we think about this process? Let's kind of back up. When we talk about, we've just been talking about onboarding. What is it? Like, ultimately, it's the socialization element. And I think in the poll that we mentioned at the beginning, 76% of new hires expect that. But is it more than that? Because I heard you say earlier, let's make sure that it's more than 2 days. So it's a continuous process?
Yes. Of course, it's all about what you want to expose them to, immediately.
Sure.
And so you talked about, the energy, everybody welcoming you. And definitely. But it's also an opportunity to set those expectations of what maybe the position or the department expects of this person. So, exposing them to what kind of knowledge, what the skills that you're going to expect, or the level of those skills you're going to expect, their abilities. The emotional expectations, how we play together as a team, all of those things. So when we think about the intentional part of the onboarding, we at Missouri Training Institute we had a plan for you.
Yes.
That was about 6 months.
It was extensive.
Yeah.
It was extensive.
Now, we didn't expose you to everything all at
Mm-hmm.
once because we had it laid out, what's happening in the first week.
Yeah.
What's happening in the first month,
Mm-hmm.
what's happening in 3 months. But we had a plan for you all of those times.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know, you've been the most recent. I've, been here 13 years. So, my memory fades a little bit. But when we think about that and we think about not just the knowledge and skills and abilities, not just the technical parts of that, but we've got to take care of the emotional parts of a new hire and really think about how they're feeling on the first day and the first week. Because I don't think you can expect them to sit down and even remember their login credentials on day 2. Because they're just not in that side of their brain that's going to remember all of that technical stuff. When they're just trying to remember where they parked.
Right.
Or, what time lunch is.
Or what their neighboring office person's name is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I think truly there's also some pre-work that can be done prior to them even stepping into the building.
Yeah.
And so that reaching out, maybe even, we do some things with letters. Mm-hmm. And I've had some other organizations, they'll have people on the team like write him a letter and, say,
that's a great idea.
Thanks to the XYZ team, we're looking so forward to that. Here's the best advice for joining our team, or just some kind of little creative thing, or, they'll gather like a survival kit. And I've seen, like ibuprofen or, like a little plant that they'll have, that welcomes them to their cubicle, or just little fun things that make them feel good. I do remember one of the things I used to manage a small satellite facility of the bank in the mall. And so it was a really tight space in the mall, and we had a bank satellite facility there. And when we would receive a new teller, we actually let them have personal pictures, and so we would let them bring in a little, because we were tight and it was cramped, but if you could have just a little something
make it homey,
that was yours.
Yeah.
And so that was always nice. And just anything that they could have that just said welcome.
Sure.
That this is your space and this is your home and we're glad you're here. So
yeah,
it just helps a little bit.
Absolutely it does. And I guess that means we're not supposed to be worried about the time right now.
Don't
Our
worry
clock
about that.
just fell, so
don't worry about that.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
9:15.
So we're looking here at the comments. Please send us in what's some successful ways that you've brought people in as well. What are some fun things you've done? I love the letter idea. I love the little kind of swag bag.
Yep.
When you first start. I've had some organizations that have done that as well. But you're absolutely right when you talk about that emotional element to this.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we don't consider the fact that maybe that first day doesn't need to be all 8 hours.
Maybe not.
And that's what about the organization I mentioned at the top of this was they cut our day in half. So that first morning on my first day, that was a full day. That was going around department to department. Then the next day was a full day, but the afternoon was a movie time with the group. You know what I mean? So it was broken up. It wasn't just work.
Right.
And that really was energizing because we got to see people even outside of the workspace. Because there's a lot of feels, especially right out of college. You're trying to do a great job.
Right.
And so yeah, things like that, just breaking those days up. It doesn't have to be a full 8-hour day. And I think those things, as you mentioned, we're setting people up for success.
Yes.
That's why this is important. That's why onboarding is important.
Yeah. And I think with that, when you think even about who you're going to introduce this new hire to,
right,
I would encourage you to also be strategic about that. Because you're communicating your culture, you're communicating and you want to show the best of what we have to offer. And I'm here to tell you that sometimes you might, eventually they're going to find out who everybody is and what everyone thinks of your organization. but maybe within the first week, we're going to steer clear of certain people.
Yeah.
And so don't just sit your new hires with anybody.
Yeah.
Be strategic, make sure that you're introducing them and placing them with people, if they're going to be learning on the job with someone, with putting them with people who also communicate the things you want them to communicate.
Absolutely.
You want them to be picking up that level of energy, and somebody who breathes and displays the mission and values of your organization. And so they'll be picking up that vibe and energy as well.
Absolutely.
And so don't just, oh, well, you've been here 30 years, you know the job so well, so here's your new hire. Because sometimes that's not always the best vibe.
Oh, not at all. I've had situations like that before, where I got stuck. I got stuck, because that's what it felt like. Stuck with somebody who had been there for a very long time. But I also got stuck with listening to all the complaints. Yeah. I got stuck to listening to all the gossip. And that wasn't what I was about. Yeah. And so it really did change my perspective about what I thought I was getting into. Yeah. So certainly important. That's a great point. A great point.
And they're going to learn that person eventually.
Yeah.
But while they're still forming their own opinion and they're still getting socialized to the environment, maybe we just, and this is Ray.
Yeah.
And she's, whoever she is here. But today you're going to be sitting with Brianna.
Yes.
And because Brianna's like this bright, peppy, energetic, and that's maybe who I want to expose you to today. That kind of thing. So, and here's the other thing. Make sure Brianna knows that she's going to have a new hire today.
Yes.
That's important.
Oh, yes. That's the worst part. When you feel like, as a new employee, you come in and you feel like you're inconveniencing somebody. Yes. Because they're like, oh, well, I didn't really know you were going to be here today.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah.
And so it's an uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you say that all of this, as we think about it, it can be overwhelming. We're talking about a lot here. But all of it can be prepared for.
Absolutely.
I mean, you all have a checklist that you've gone through before. And certainly one, I think we even have a generic one that we're going to post for you all later.
Just give you an idea.
Yeah, to get you all started. But tell me a little bit about that, like the how to onboard, what the checklist kind of looks like, and how you should plan it.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it's all like the required stuff, making sure that you have, the I-9 signed and all the things that HR requires. And I really want you to think about, first of all, and I know a lot of places are already doing this, especially during the pandemic, when we didn't have that face-to-face interaction. So a lot of stuff has already gone online or through an app. That's great. Make sure, though, that it's still on your checklist and that you have things done in a timely order, because there are things that have to be done prior to the first day. And then I want you to look at your checklist and what are things that can be done prior to the first day, whether it has in the past or not. Ask yourself, could it be? And then move it there so we can get all of that other maybe paperwork stuff out of the way, get that settled so they're not feeling like, they're checking into the IRS. Sorry if you're on from the IRS. But get some of that stuff taken care of prior to that. And then, is there anything else that you can add? Is there like something fun? Is there like a video welcome? Is there the team t-shirt? Is there something that you can add that breaks up all the monotony of the must-dos with something that's fun to do? So when you're thinking about your checklist and you're going through those things, how can you inject something else that will help socialize them into your culture? What do you want them to know about you? What is that personality of your culture? Right. Are you fun? Are you energetic? What is that, right? What are the words that describe you in your team or in your organization? And how are you going to demonstrate that? And then find the avenue, the channel that does it. If you're high tech, high touch, how are you going to communicate that in your onboarding? Right? You've got to find the ways that do that. And then when you start thinking of all those things, and I would do this, interview your people. And especially the people that have started most recently. What do they wish was there that wasn't?
Absolutely.
Right? And just because it's not on HR's checklist of onboarding doesn't mean it doesn't have to be on your list. And so we've done that over the years. We've just gone back to new hires and said, what do you wish was there? And then you start spacing it out. Do we need it on the first day? Do we even need it on the first week? And then start spacing things out. And we did. That's how we came up with, it's about a 7, I don't know how many pages.
Oh, it was close to, I think, 10 pages.
Okay.
Yeah, and it actually came in the big 3 ring binder, and it had some of other things in their maps, how extension was set up. I mean, it had everything I could have wanted.
Yeah.
What my job description was, then what the roles and responsibilities were. I mean, it was good reading. It was good reading.
But it was spread out, it talked about who she who you could go to.
Yeah.
Even. So it wasn't necessarily a textbook, but it was a resource.
Yes.
And we also had books that would be helpful.
Yes. Yep.
And
you had those ready for me. I believe it was day 1 or day 2. They were there on my desk, and so I could start my reading plan.
Yeah.
And that was helpful too.
Yeah,
so.
and we prioritize those for you. We also, because we're Clifton Strengths certified and believers, we also had you take that assessment.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was invigorating. I will say that. Like, if you're a workplace and you're thinking about maybe implementing Clifton Strengths or even EQ or True Colors, all those things that MTI does, I'll throw that out there.
Yep.
Do it, because that was, for somebody who had never done something like that before, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And yeah, maybe I'm a little odd. I'm a learner as number one.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that I loved learning about myself. But that's neat, and that's really your first opportunity to set your people up for success and understand who they are and how their strengths will fit into their role there. So, it was great. I loved it. Yeah. I loved it.
But we didn't just analyze her.
No.
We then sat down and held a big powwow with all of us. And we shared our strengths. And so we got to use that for team development when we brought her into the team. And so, but we spaced those out.
Right.
Because we knew on the first day, it's kind of like, just everything's so new and all your feelers are exposed and they're raw. And we gave plenty of time for just downtime. And I remember letting her, Dewey and I, thinking about this and like, okay, so let's give her a break. Let's let her go back to her office if she needs to just sit there and text her husband or, just chill for a little bit, or maybe just walk around campus. Or I remember giving you intentional downtime because everything's just so new and people need time to process, or maybe just go and get a coffee together. But not just jam everything in just to get it in, because guess what? She's not going to be producing tomorrow anyway. So why try to cram all that stuff in on day 1 or day 2 in order to see if she's going to crank out production tomorrow? Because she's not.
Well, and we did actually go to lunch my first day. I love Mexican food too, so that was that was even a kicker there. But for me, it's really important for me to see people outside of their habitat, if you will, when it comes to the workplace. I like to know people. I'm kind of the weird person I mentioned yesterday in a training I did. I would sit at a mall having a baby and just watch people. And so being able to just do something outside of the walls of the workplace, I think that was critical for the onboarding process too.
Yep.
So we're getting comments in, and I love it, you guys. So Debbie said, it's kind of similar, right? Spent a long time with the executive director on her first day. They went to lunch, took her out with the rest of the staff. It was a lot crazier after the first day because there were several things going on. I can only imagine, man. It can get busy pretty quick, How do you? I guess that's a great segue into a question I have. How do you plan for the unexpected when you're onboarding a new employee? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you make sure that they're contained from the chaos that could come down? Or is that just part of the planning process too? Like thinking about what could happen? It's an odd, It's really intriguing to me to think about how do we make sure that if we are in a busy season that they don't feel that.
Well, I think part of that is not planning for them to be doing anything that they can't get out of.
Gotcha.
So for example, let's say something massive happens, then we could just excuse you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it really would take us away from being able to do the onboarding plan we had for that day.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Then if it was something that we would want you to see us do and it was safe for you to be exposed to that, again, I don't know what the emergency would be, but would we want you to be exposed to the chaos? Would we be able to talk you through what we were doing, you know, so you could say, oh, you know what, this is something that might happen.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, we're just going to do it. You watch, you know, that kind of thing. Or if it was like, hey, we're going to have to totally dedicate our time here. We wouldn't be able to give you our thinking right now. You know,
let's pick
you're
this back
welcome
up
to
tomorrow.
stay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, kind of depends on the emergency, but I'd want to be able to walk you through it. If you were going to see it, if I didn't feel like I could give you that respect, in doing that as a new hire, then I don't have, you know, that dedication. I think I would probably excuse you.
Yeah. And that's great.
It kind of depends, but
well, no, and I think about that now. It's kind of bringing me back to my former career at the police department, and we actually had a major, I believe it was a homicide, even my day one, right? And so, as a public information officer, you're expected to kind of go out and handle that at the scene, and you're absolutely correct. That's what they did. They brought me along, and then explained kind of step by step what the process was going to look like. So I was exposed to it, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Right.
So yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. Great point.
I mean, you can give the person the chance, you know?
Yeah. Because I think if they would have said, okay, we got to handle this, you go home for the day, I would have been like, but I can come watch, right? That's just who I was. So I think that, just maybe even offering that option, what works for you.
Yeah. Kind of depends on the situation and the person in the position that you've hired them for.
Right. Right. It looks like I want to get back to Debbie. Also talked here. She said Clifton Strengths is something that she'd like, that I'd like the new folks to do as well as the rest of the staff. Oh, Debbie, reach out to us. Yeah, reach out to us.
They've actually been through it. Her organization's been through it. She's with Mobius.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we're so glad that you're on. Thanks, Debbie. Yeah. And thanks to everyone who is on. We're getting close to the end, so I just want to prompt you all here. If you have any questions, things that maybe we haven't covered during this onboarding essentials process, send those in to us so we can catch those before we sign off. But I guess any final thoughts?
I really want people to think about being intentional with your onboarding. You are more likely through intentional onboarding to retain your people. I mean, they're most engaged the first 6 months. And so really think about that moving forward. And I know a lot of people are hybrid, if not staying remote. And so you really got to boost that intentionality and really think about what I did when people were in the office 100% may not be at all what you can do now in a hybrid or fully remote environment. You just can't manage the same way. Yeah. So really think about upping your game, doing something more creative, doing videos. And it doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to have the expertise of somebody like her to do all of this flying in and flying out of, text and lower thirds and all that stuff. We're just so lucky and blessed. But, it can just be you. And that's what they want to see anyway, is just you. So. Yeah.
Well, and I just put up our soup series. That was kind of a good segue, I guess.
Great.
My bad, but there you go.
Hey.
So, one of the things that we like to talk about in this, we want to set people up for success too.
Absolutely.
And our supervisory certificate series, we think, does just that.
Yes.
So Ray, you were actually hosting this one.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about it?
Absolutely. This is coming up. It's going to be in person. It's going to be in November. We've got 4 dates set. Happening over at Memorial Union. So beautiful building, totally revamped. They just took the scaffolding off the the towers. So that'll be fun. And we'd love to see you there. So it's definitely got some enrollment going on. It's going to be held. So get signed up so you make sure you get a seat. And we'll be in touch. And by the way, you will go through the Clifton Strengths assessment. So get your phones out and scan that QR code and get signed up for that.
Yes, absolutely. And I apologize, I put that up a little quick. We're going to put these also in the comments section too, so you have those links to each of these if you're interested in signing up.
Great.
You know, I did want to touch briefly on what you had mentioned about the virtual element. You know, and you're absolutely right that it doesn't have to be super fancy, or there are so many different resources out there, and some of them you can get free trials too, you know, just to create something, to do something. Even if you take your phone and do a video in the car. That was actually my husband's corporate office. That's what she was doing all during the pandemic, was you'd see her just in her house with her iPhone. But that personalization, I was even thinking about some of the things people did during that for like birthday parties and different types of celebrations when they were driving by somebody's house. I mean, maybe that's a little much. You don't want to scare them off. But I mean, if that's your culture and you're trying to welcome them, I mean, maybe. Or it's certainly at least setting up some type of major Zoom meeting and having fun backgrounds and just making it interactive. You're limited, but make it as social as possible. So lots of opportunity. Oh my goodness, there's so many things out there.
It really is about connecting.
It is.
And that's your focus when you're onboarding. They're going to actually learn quickly, more quickly, quicker, if you can get them through that emotional part and get them connecting. And so it'll be amazing how much more quickly they will pick up at the task and technical part of the job. So it's worth it.
The socialization element is the number one.
Absolutely.
Number one. Any research you do will tell you that.
Yes.
So there's one thing before we go. I wanted to also bring this one up. Discovering your strengths.
Yes. So
we have, and I should have mentioned this at the beginning. I see some people have signed off already. But for those who have stuck around, we have kind of a fun thing with this. This is also discovering your strengths. This is specific to Clifton Strengths.
Clifton only.
And this is a workshop that's coming up on October 20th. All right.
So if you want something quick. Coming up.
Sign up for this. If you mention to us, you send us an email and mention to us that you saw this on Facebook Live, we will actually pay for your Clifton Strengths assessment. So it'll be $50 off the actual registration fee.
Yes.
All right. So we hope that you'll consider signing up. Ray will be teaching that one as well. But it's also in person, and we are excited to be back with you in that live or that in-person environment. I would say live environment.
But you got to email us.
You do.
Either through our MTI email or my Lion RA email or her Larimer B email, and just tell us you saw it on Facebook and you want to register, and we will give you a code. And so that way, when you register, you will actually get $50 off the registration price, which pays for your Clifton Strengths assessment.
That's right. That's right. And it's a great tool, y'all. So if you got new people that just started, that could be a great thing to send them to.
Yes.
But with it, email again, mti@missouri.edu. So other than that, I didn't see any other questions come in, Ray. No. So I think we are going to wrap this up.
All right.
And thank you all for tuning in today. We'll see you again here in a couple weeks.
Yep.
Topic ideas?
Let us know.
Okay, there you go. There you go. All right. Do you want to sign off, Ray?
I will. Everybody, thanks so much, and go be great.